Break one now for you gear jammers out there. Welcome back to another episode of Smooth Operator Trucking, where we create the dream 1 mile at a time. Today we're going to be talking about the 5 questions you should ask before booking a load, and we're getting started right now. Question is going to be, how much is the load paying per mile? This is very important because it's going to determine whether you're going to make a profit or not on that load. And in order to know if you are going to make a profit off that load, you first have to know what your cost per mile is. Another thing you might want to know to determine if that is a good paying load is, what are the loads going for in that particular area, that particular region, and that particular lane. For example, let's say that I'm in Chicago, and I know that in the Midwest for dry van freight, that's probably where you're going to find the best rates. In that area, you probably find stuff going for $240, $250 or more a mile. So in that instance, I might not want to take anything less than $240 or $250 per mile. Question number 2, how much is the load paying after deadhead? All right, now this is actually to a certain degree an even more important question than how much is it paying per mile. And again, it goes back to knowing what your cost per mile is. For example, I know that my cost per mile is normally around $1.51. So if I take a load for, let's say, $2.25 per mile, then I have to deadhead so far to get it, and then all-in miles, I have to do the math to figure out to make sure that after all the miles, after the deadhead to go and get the load, that I'm above $1.51 per mile. Obviously, $1.51 is the break even. You want to be well above that, but you know that you have to be at least that in order to break even. Since I know that my cost per mile is $1.51, I try not to take anything paying less than $2 a mile after the deadhead. If there's a load on the board that's paying $2.50 a mile, but after the deadhead it's going to put me below $1.50, then I won't take it. If there's a load on the board that's paying $2.25 per mile, which might be below the national dry van average right now, but after the deadhead it's got me at $2.10, $2.15, that's going to be the load that I'm going to take. Third question, how much is the load paying per day? This question is actually just as important as how much the load is paying per mile. And in order to find out what load is good for you, you have to know how much it costs you per day to operate that truck, with your fixed costs and your variable costs put together. For example, I know that for me, with all of my fixed costs, variable costs, we talk about your insurance, trailer rental fee, driver pay, maintenance, everything, permits and licensing, I know that my daily cost is $632 a day. So when I'm booking a load, the minimum that I can take and break even is $632. Now, obviously, I don't want to break even. I want to be well above that. So for me, I try to look for everything that's paying $1,000 a day, but I will take something that's paying $800 a day if it is paying an exceptionally high rate per mile. Another thing you want to take into consideration is, how many days are you going to be on that load? You might find a load that it's got a great rate per mile. Let's say it's paying $4 a mile, and let's say it's going, I don't know, 1,000 miles, so that's $4,000, right? That sounds great, but if you end up being on this load for 7 days or 10 days, then you have to do the math and figure out if that load is actually worth, or if you're actually getting your daily minimum rate per day that you need to stay profitable. For me, a load that's paying $4,000, $4 a mile, only goes 1,000 miles, but I have to be on the load for 7 days, it wouldn't work for me. It sounds great, but it's only $571 per day when you break it down. And that would actually put me below my minimum rate per day. Actually, I would lose money on that. Next question you want to ask is, what does the freight look like in the area that that load is taking you to? If you're going from Midwest to Midwest, might not have to worry about it. If you're going from Midwest to the South, or Midwest to the Northeast, or Midwest, you want to take a look at that, and you have to know those lanes and know what the freight is looking like coming out of that area. If you know you're going to, let's say South Florida, me personally, I'm not taking anything less than $3.50 a mile to go down there, maybe even $4 a mile, because if you're going to South Florida, chances are you're gonna have to deadhead out of there, and you have to count that into your cost analysis to figure out if the load is actually worth you taking. If you know you're going Midwest to Midwest, then maybe you can take a lower rate, you know, $2.25, $2.30 a mile, because you know that's going to get you to another area where you're going to get at least that, or maybe even more. So as much as I don't like to use this word, I guess you have to look at the overall kind of like back haul of it all, you know. So all right, I'm going out for $3 a mile. How much am I coming out for? And when I'm done with that, am I still going to be above, for example, for me, $1.51? Me personally, in this market, I try to stay above $2 a mile after deadheading all miles. So if I'm taking a load, I'm looking at that freight area and I'm trying to see, can I come back for above $2 a mile also? Or, for example, if I take a load that's paying $3 a mile, after deadhead, it's $2.50 a mile, and I get to like the Northwest, and I have to take a load that's paying $2 a mile, but $1.75 after deadhead, then that still keeps me above that $2 a mile. And the last question you have to ask yourself is, do you have enough hours to run that load? This probably is not super important to most people, but you do have to take that into consideration. And it just boils down to time management. Let's say you're taking a load from the East Coast to the West Coast. Well, chances are you'll probably be able to get a 34-hour reset in there somewhere. Then once you get to where you're going, are you gonna have enough time to pick up that load, come back to the East Coast and get another 34-hour reset in? Or is the scheduling on that one a little tighter and you might not be able to get a 34-hour reset in, or you might have to run off of recaps? So these are things you have to take into consideration when booking a load. So let's recap. 5 questions you want to ask yourself. How much is the load paying per mile? How much is the load paying per day? How much is the load paying after deadhead? How does the freight look in the area that you're going? And do you have enough hours to run this load? If you have been trucking for a while, let us know in the comments, what are the questions that you ask yourself before booking a load, and what advice would you give to new drivers and new owner operators before booking a load? Anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the content. If you did, hit that like button and consider subscribing. And as I always say, it's not about how much you make, it's about how much you keep. Hard times don't last, hard truckers do. And last, but definitely not least, stay smooth, my friends. If you like this video, feel free to check out some of my other videos.